Hello my fellow hunters, sorry for the abstinence. In the last few days I didn't created anything sort of content or updated the elemental switch build spreadsheet, but I read some very nice comments on the Monster Hunter subreddit regarding to my Google document, and I saw a lot of users said they wish there were the same content for other weapons. Yes, and that motivated to update this spreadsheet again for next time. And in the future, I also gonna focus more on the spreadsheet, more on the Google document than on the spreadsheet. The reason is I recognize that more users are tend to using instead now my Google Doc version instead of the spreadsheet version. So the only bad thing is the spreadsheet is always updated. So with every title updated, the spreadsheet is first updated and then the other stuff. The thing is, if in the future a new title update is released, this stuff is gonna removed, and yes, you have to grab back to the main SwitchX and land status spreadsheet. Yes, but you can see here currently 10 visitors, and for the title update 2 elemental meta builds currently there isn't a big hype, and there was a time I had more than 120 viewers at the same time. Yeah, so currently 41, that is also very decent. And today I want to talk about skill symbiosis. I did this very roughly, so please feel free to add some stuff in the comments so I can update the spreadsheet, and I only want to talk about the important things that I gonna use myself. Maybe there are other very important things, but I didn't take a look at this stuff. And yes, the only thing is you have to go, if you're using the spreadsheet, just open the Symbioses document, or if you're using the Google Doc version, just go to Armor Skills, and there is a subtitle called Skills Symbioses. I didn't know, please tell me in the comments how it's correctly calculated. I am not from England, so I didn't know whether symbiosis or so it is the in German we say Mehrzahl, so I didn't know what is Mehrzahl in English, so just give me a second. I didn't know what the plural of symbiosis is in English, so please tell me in the comments down below. So I just want to talk about, yes, there are a lot of skills, and a lot of skills working very well with different others, and some skills are didn't good when you use them alone. The best example is Agitator. Agitator alone isn't really worth it, but there are some skills that making Agitator really useful, especially now with the title update 2, and I want to explain that to you in this video. So I did all the table very roughly, so there may be a ton of wrong stuff here, but you will see. Yes, I just tried a short intro. Some skills harmonize particularly well with selected others or reinforce each other. Make sure that you use such symbiosis in set building because they develop extreme potential. Yes, and I just from my mind out choosing some of the symbiosis here. The first one I think is most important one. It is evade extender and evade window. You should have this skill on every set. From your SwitchX, you should absolutely have evade extender, and I would say evade window and Embolden is kinda optional. So I'm gonna mark this maybe a little bit in a gray tone, because I didn't make that just normal. Didn't want to make too much colors in the spreadsheet. Yes, evade extender is a great skill for SwitchX, but you're still very vulnerable, so you can use evade window, or instead also use Embolden. So you didn't have to use evade window, but evade window highly increases your invulnerability, and Embolden has some hidden skills, because Embolden level 1 gives you 3 levels of evade window. So if you use evade extender, I personally recommend level 1 or level 2. I think level 2 is the best. At till update 1, we always used evade extender 2 because all the other level 2 slots were garbage, and now we are getting strength level 2 slots. skills, so maybe yes, instead we use some big ass attack tools or big ass protective polish tools. And yes, so maybe now Await Extender level 1, but yes, if you're going to go more for combat, you can also use Await Extender 2, and I highly recommend using Await Window level 3 is very good. So in either use Await Window, some Nargacuga armor pods, or Embolden, which yes, giving you a hidden level, 3 levels of Await Window. So you can also use Await Extender with Await Window level 1 and Embolden 1, that gives you Await Window level 4. So you can maybe easily figure it out yourself. So you can see also here. Await Window increases invulnerability window, greatly increases invulnerability window. Yeah, you didn't really need level 5 because the Embolden Mitsune armor pod has, I think it has like a cap, but 100% sure, but it isn't really worth it to use, for example, maxed out Await Window with Embolden. Yeah, so you have a little bit to take care about this, but very great combination. Also here are some other skills, but they are just for certain conditions. I personally only use Adrenaline Rush sometimes, and I didn't really use Status Trigger and Blitzscale Horn because I'm like a speedrunner, to be honest, and I prefer to use in this case more Elemental Switch X than Status because it still has more DPS and Status is like more for comfy. Yeah, so Adrenaline Rush is like the Adrenaline mantle or the evasion mantle from Monster Underworld. If you perfectly evade a monster attack, you gain very good attack boost. And I think for this skill you should absolutely use Await Window or Embolden to better trigger that skill. Same goes for Status Trigger. It's a Frontier skill. They imported from Monster Hunter Frontier, where you can apply where they remove the RNG from the status, the 1/3 RNG, and increase it to 100% for a certain amount of time. Maybe it depends, 8 to 12 seconds. Currently don't know exactly. Yes, and we have Blitzscale Horn. And I think the handicap is you have to use you have to use grounded playstyle. So that isn't really a handicap, but it isn't worth it for aerial switch X. So you fully have to go for grounded playstyle. Yes, and that makes your weapon sharpen, but I didn't think it's very useful because switch X is one of the weapons that it loses. I think it's the weapon that loses the first time the weapon. So I think there's no other weapon that loses in a shorter time that loses faster sharpness. Okay, to make it easy. Yes. Also another synergy is which is a quality of life more, or even yes, it is also DBS, but more quality of life, I think. Yes. More recommended for solo. Embolden with Agitator, Defiance and Diversion. That sounds a little bit complicated, but Diversion is more like for multiplayer than for solo. It doesn't really make sense for solo hunting, except you're having some buddies that are very aggressive to the monster, and the monster always tries to aim the buddies. Then you can also use Diversion. Embolden is just a fast Agitator trigger. So the good thing is to trigger Agitator, the most time you have to do an amount of certain damage, like most time you have to do 800 damage, and then the monster get enraged. But with Embolden, sometimes the monster already get enraged and you didn't have attacked the monster, and it's still in the agitated mode. So this is very useful, especially for Flaming Espinas. You can try this. You didn't really have to attack the monster, and it just get agitated. Yes. And Defiance is a skill that is on my every Switch X set because it's like always up earplugs. So you need Defiance minimum level 3 to have that high earplugs for the high tier monsters like Tigrex and other stuff. Or yes, Nargacuga, all the other monsters, or Kosarak. And yes, for that is minimum Defiance level 3. And yes. Embolden helps to give you a better uptime of these skills. Also Agitator, better trigger. Agitator has a trigger rate of I think about 70% or 60%. Yes, with that skill, or even higher, and without it's only about 50%. Yes, now to the DBS skills. This the Symbioses, a rapid move with burst and Intrepid hurt. Just you can read here, with rapid morph you gain a higher attack speed. That means you deal a lot better. Yes, you can do a lot smoother attacking and didn't have that much pauses between the attacks. That is very good for the burst activation, because for burst you do at least one hit every 3 seconds, and general switch X, if you go for aerial switch X, you didn't really need that Intrepid hurt, because with CST you're continuously attacking all the time. But yes, if you go for grounded, I think Intrepid hurt is absolutely a thing, because yes, if the monster throws you away, you now do a few hits until the burst is triggered, and if you get Intrepid hurt and you have a full bar, you can just continuously attacking, and that giving burst a much better uptime. Yes, so I think Intrepid hurt is like cherry on top. Rapid move is very good with burst, yes, for faster attacking. Next thing is Bloodlust with Coalescence and Resuscitate. I already mentioned in my Title Update 1 meta video the synergy with Bloodlust and Coalescence. Bloodlust and Coalescence is a combination that works best for status weapons, because Coalescence gives you percentage increase of status attack. Yes, so percentage increase are better than flat increase, and that's the reason why it is absolutely must-have skill for Title Update 2, especially if you're using status trigger and other stuff. Yeah, so absolutely take care of that. You gain after the Frenzy Recovery 20 up to 25% affinity, depending on the levels of Bloodlust, but I recommend to just use level 1 because of the skill armor exclusive skills. Yes, and if Bloodlust is triggered, or even it's not triggered, all the time Coalescence is triggered. So Bloodlust giving Coalescence a 100% uptime, and Coalescence increase your status attack up to 15%, or you're giving you flat 15 raw. It isn't that good for Elemental Switch X, but yes, very good for the affinity, so I think you should use it on the most sets. Oh no, 46 fuels, nice. Yeah, the next thing is one I also sometimes use. It is Mail of Hellfire with defense boost. The thing is, with Mail of Hellfire you have a defense handicap, which I can show you here. You have here Mail of Hellfire, and you can see here, I think Mail of Hellfire is better for Elemental, because you get percentage increase, which is better than raw. Yes, and I think it's more versatile than the Dereliction armor. And yes, you can see here 100 defense, so you really recognize when you use 100 defense or 50 elemental resistance, which is very high. And yes, so you absolutely have to compensate this. So this is more a compensation than a synergy, but if you use Mail of Hellfire, you absolutely have defense boost. Very useful Mail of Hellfire on elemental sets, where you gain up to 20% additional elemental attack, which is absolutely insane. But never really recommended Mail of Hellfire for the meta builds, because most users didn't like the handicaps. And for the next skill you have a HP handicap. This is absolutely meta, I say speedrun meta, because with Dereliction you're continuously losing health, which gives you a 100% uptime trigger for resentment. And you can also trigger a Heroes if you want, and didn't want to heal back. So if you were under the 30% health bar or under the 5% health bar when you use Tango Adrenaline, you gain an insane amount of attack. But I didn't really recommend this, just for speedrunners or if you're playing Lance. Next is, so the thing is, you always should aim for Protective Polish, but I just want to mention here that Grinder S and Protective Polish is absolute insane synergy, because you can see here, like, just looking for Grinder S. Grinder as giving your skill activation time of 90 seconds, like you can read here, and Protective Polish is also 90 seconds. So they are very well synergized from the developers. Yes, and I only really recommend it on the Ibushi Switch X or the Tigre X Switch X. The thing is, if you use it on the Tigre X Switch X, you also have to play a little bit with white sharpness. So if you go into very much deep, it isn't very useful to play with the white sharpness, because Ibushi is a little bit better. You go directly from purple into blue, so you doesn't have to play with the white sharpness, which giving you a lot better DPS and damage output. So yes, for the Tigrex it's kind of more experimental or fun to play. Also, very bad thing is, I recognize when I'm using this combination is, for example, you go into blue and a monster is paralyzed. But yes, that is a bad time. So you have to decide, do you want to attack the monster with very bad DPS, or do you just want to save the moment to sharpen your weapon? Yes, and it's kind of very annoying, because you can pick your own windows when sharpen the weapon. You always have to wait until it goes into blue. So it's, for the most players, very annoying. But for me as speedrunners, it's not really a problem. You need some good RNG with the topples, and yes, then you can make it working. Also, another very good synergy is Blood Rite compared with working with Blood Port Parager Recovery Up. Yes, the only bad thing on this combination is you have a very bad trigger, so you need, for me personally as speedrunner, before I even broke any monster pods, the quest is already killed. So I tried some speedruns with Blood Rite, because the bad thing is I killed a monster and not even a single time Blood Rite was triggered. So only really recommend this for very long hunts or very easy breakable monster pods. Yes, and if you break that monster pod, you definitely should aim for aerial switch X to have a better consistent attacking to this broken monster pod, which gives you a better healing. You can use recovery up to gain more health back, and yes, that's what I want to say. Yes, so I personally didn't really use it, but if some monsters that are continuously doing some very annoying damage, like fire damage, which deals overtime damage, or monsters that are poisoning you, and you didn't really have the skills to squeeze in a resistance skill, you can make use of this combination. Now there are some other Symbioses, which aren't really skills, but skills, they are working together with your environment or other stuff. There was also one skill I forgot to mention, but maybe it come back in my mind, I don't know. So there are two different ones. The first is a DBS skill. The handicap is you need an elemental hit zone of minimum, which is 20, and it is elemental exploit, which works very well with elemental fials. I calculated it back. The only power fial where it's worth it is the Kushlada Aura, because Kushlada Aura has insane amount of elemental attack. As you can see here, elemental exploit increase your elemental attack from 10 up to 15%, depending on the level. I only recommend to use level 1, because you already get 10% from only one armor chest piece from the Silverless chest or any other Silverless armor pieces in general. Very good. So I have the Silverless armor handicap because it's a skill exclusive armor board. And yes, you need a minimum 50 element to make that skill useful. So this skill is absolutely useless on a Switch X which has less than 50 element. Instead, you should use more crit boost or other stuff. Yes, and the next symbiosis is Power Prolonger, especially for Power Fial. So on my meta builds, I using on every elemental fial Power Prolonger level 2, on every Power Fial Power Prolonger level 3, and I always using this also in speed runs. But there are also some few hunters out there who didn't really make use of Power Prolonger or less use of Power Prolonger, and who was very good skill management. For those, I especially recommend, if you're going for multiplayer, you have a very, very hard time to land the elemental burst counter on a monster. It's very tricky. I tried it out myself, and I have a really hard time to getting power files and in multiplayer. So I recognize the last symbiosis back. fortunately. I hope I remind it back. Yes. So especially for power files, you absolutely use Power Prolonger level 3 or level 2 if you're in multiplayer mode. And now I also remembered the last Symbioses. I'm gonna now add this to the spreadsheet. So I just cut it out when I edited all this stuff. Yes, and the last one is I did a mistake again. Trust it's another quality of life. It's a DBS skill, man. It is build-up boost with exhaust file, and build-up boost can increase your attack up to 20%. And the thing is, exhaust files, I can read here, exhaust files got applied on every single hit. It is no RNG like the other statuses. So like if you have poison or para, you only apply status at approximately about every third hit. You do one status apply. So if you use like para, poison or sleep or other weapons, that skill got like a nerf. So if the skill, for example, says you gain a raw increase of 10%, in real it's just 3%. But exhaust isn't RNG, so exhaust got applied on every single hit, and that makes build-up boost very strong, especially for the exhaust file. And so it's like 1-to-1. If the skill says 10%, it's not in real 3.3 like from like the other status files. It is, if the skill size it increases 10%, it's 10. Or if you're using 3 levels of build-up boost, I highly recommend using about 2 levels. I think that is the best way to go. If you use 2 levels, it is same strength as a power file. So if you're using 2 levels of build-up boost, it has the same energy as you using a power file. So this is very, very strong for the KO files, and to be honest, it is not really competitive to say it. I compared this already. You can see here exhaust with build-up boost can't really catch up with a power file build. So you can see it is still, even if you use that skills, 8% weaker than a power file, but it is very good to compensate all the damage. So very highly recommend on every exhaust file you should use build-up boost.